don't need a case study this week for the week that was. You just need to look at Elon Musk. Because whether you admire him or not, he gives us one of the clearest real-time examples of how leadership behavior shapes culture. But more importantly, how charisma can start to replace control. Let's look at the pattern. Publicly challenging regulators, making market moving announcements on social media, setting aggressive timelines and then resetting expectations, driving intensity, rewarding speed, expecting people to keep up. Now, again, this isn't about judgment, it's about consequence, because when those behaviors come from a charismatic, successful leader, they don't get questioned, they get copied. And that's where the risk begins, because charisma is very, very powerful. It creates belief, it creates followership, it creates momentum. But it also does something more dangerous. It reduces challenge. Inside an organization like Tesla, people aren't just observing behavior, they're actually calibrating their own behavior against it. In this context, speed matters, boldness matters, challenging convention matters, and that can drive extraordinary results. From an opportunity management perspective, it's a huge advantage. It allows the organization to move faster than anyone else, to take risks others won't take, to innovate at pace. But here's the problem. When charisma is dominant, discipline can become optional. And over time, that creates fragility, because the same behaviors that drive speed can also create reputational exposure when communication is unfiltered and public. It can create strategic inconsistency when priorities shift rapidly. And it certainly creates internal pressure when expectations stretch people and systems. And perhaps most importantly, a culture where challenge becomes uncomfortable. Let's break it down through the cultural management levers. Let's start with tone at the top. Tone here is not controlled messaging. It's personality-driven signaling. And when tone is driven by personality rather than structure, it becomes unpredictable. Hiring becomes skewed. You don't just hire for capability, you start hiring for alignment with the leader's style, which can reduce diversity of thought precisely when you need it most. Training becomes informal. People learn not through structured development, but by watching and adapting to leadership behavior. That works until the signals become inconsistent. And then we have incentives and performance management. If speed and boldness are rewarded above all else, then caution, challenge and control can quietly disappear. Not because anyone decided that, but because no one is actually incentivized to do it. So the real question, is Elon Musk effective? Clearly in many ways he is. The real cultural question is the system around him strong enough to absorb his style? Because if culture becomes too dependent on one individual, then it stops being a system and starts becoming a reflection. And reflections don't scale well. They don't stabilize under pressure, and they don't survive transition. That's the lesson this week. Charisma is a leadership strength, but unmanaged it becomes a cultural risk. Because leadership behavior doesn't just influence culture, in cases like this, it replaces it.